I never sign NDAs because I refuse to end up in a no-win legal situation. The NDA terms might require me to violate my fiduciary responsibility or vice versa, unless they will sign an agreement identifying you against all costs arising from any lawsuit arising from a conflict between the NDA and any future agreements or fiduciary responsibilities you may assume. It's simply going to be a no from me. Artists should never sign NDAs because they constrain creativity. If you have a yellow line in one piece of art that you get shown and you have to draw a yellow line in a different type of art later on, are you violating the agreement? Well, if they can hold it against you, then yeah, you are. And so that's kind of stupid. An NDA will create a conflict of interest either way. What happens if you want to accept the job and you find that the NDA makes it impossible for you to provide services to them in the way that they want because they didn't tell you in advance of you signing it? That's a problem. You didn't go into it up front, and they couldn't tell you anything up front. So it was impossible for you to get informed consent. That's not in your best interest. Also shows a lack of trust when they ask for this. Confidentiality is implied, and that's part of professionalism. You should always do your best to keep confidentiality and be a professional by keeping your client's secrets for them. That's part of your job. But because of that, it's also already illegal to disclose the confidential information. There's plenty of laws around this, and you're already protected. You don't have to sign anything. You still have that requirement and that ethical obligation, not to mention that professional obligation. So it's honestly offensive when somebody suggests that I'm going to be unprofessional or divulge so called secrets. Telling me that they value my ideas and want to work with me or value my skills and but don't trust me, well, that's not really a vibe I want in my life. So that's not going to happen. It also creates liability for me that you're not actually paying for. If you have me sign that document, you're not compensating me for the limitations that I'm being imposed on. As an engineer, it behooves me to stay on top of what I promise to who. And life is so much simpler without the hassle of having to make promises to people. And so I try not to do it unless I mean it. It's a matter of professionalism that when I make a promise, I give my word. It means a lot more to me than any contract or anything else that could happen because my word is my bond and that matters. Besides, NDAs are basically unenforceable when they're brought to court, so they're basically useless. I would much rather be considered an honorable person who keeps his word than have to worry about having to go to court and find that, yeah, the other party was stupid and never should have asked me to sign that anyway. At that point, I'm going to ruin my reputation either way. And it's not going to help me in my professional endeavors in the future if I get that sort of reputation. So it's in my best interest to just simply keep my word. I've also seen, especially more recently, Trojan horses and these agreements that are basically turn them into non-compete agreements in a different way. And that's telling because non-compete agreements were recently banned because of how evil they are. I've seen them used unethically, and I've literally seen non-disclosure agreements that say, look, you're going to accept the fact that you can't write specific types of code or use specific algorithms for the rest of your life, and yet they won't tell you what those are in advance. And so as a result of that, they're just used as a way to silence people and steal ownership of their abilities. And I'm not going to ever allow that to happen. Fact is, there are no original ideas. Ideas cannot be owned. I was told by legal scholars that they call this the nothing new under the sun doctrine. And that's why NDAs are often called a poor man's patent because they just don't work the same way that you think they do. Because let's face it, not everybody knows how the patent system works. Ideas mean nothing. They are a dime a dozen, and you can sit there and generate a dozen of them, and you will still own nothing. Asking for an NDA shows a potentially skewed perception of what constitutes value as well. And it also kind of indicates that you kind of value the ideas over the execution or the finished work product. People who think this way are just looking for a code monkey. They're not going to value me as a software development engineer, so it's better for me to avoid them. My experience as a primary reason for a potential client to want to have me sign an NDA comes down to a lack of industry experience. It's ultimately a skill issue on their part that they're calling out. They think that if they get me to sign a piece of paper, it will protect what's theirs. But they don't understand that the idea is not something that can be owned. And it's the output of the work that matters. And generally, they're going to be asking me to recreate something that I've probably already built before, just in a different way. And so, because of that, and because my skills are valuable, there's really nothing new under the sun here. They just have the implementation, they have the working thing that will run on a computer, but they don't own the idea. You can't own the idea of a social media website. You can't own the idea of a functioning login. You can't own the idea of a friends list. And you definitely can't own the idea of an AI.